Welcome to Dayton Warcry Club. I'm Warren, and today I'm joined by my co-host Fred, as well as special guests Mike Sansom and Rob Viscomi. Today we'll cover our last bits of tournament coverage for the year, as well as a little bit of a year in review and a preview of events on our radar for next year, all coming up on this episode of Dayton Warcry Club. Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going well.
Yep, just rocking and rolling.
Good to be back on. Excited to get to chat with Fred this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover here, and I'll probably do some other transitions here in post, but we're going to skip straight to the lists.
Yeah, I'll get rid of all this garbage. I want to talk about this.
Nothing we've been waiting for literally months on end.
So we'll get started with our event. We had a small event in Dayton, just 4 players, so we just did round robin. But Fred's our local champion, still protecting his undefeated streak locally, and he took KO this time. We use some TheSaltySea pack missions here. I don't think I got them written down, but TheSaltySea missions are great too.
Yeah, they are. They really changed the way I want to play the game.
Totally.
So this is kind of Fred's standard list here: Arcanaut Admiral, the 275-point Engine Master with the dirigible suit, Company Captain, Thunder with mortar, Thunder with either cannon, and 5 Arcanauts with pistols. 1,000 points, 10 models. And Fred, we've talked about this list or about KO in general multiple times in the past, but just kind of call it the high points here. Like, what makes this different than some of the other ones that we've seen around online?
So I like KO a lot. It's a departure from my normal ground and pound Nurgle demons lists that I've been playing pretty extensively since 2.0, which replaced my beloved spiders from 1.0. But there's KO is so deep. There are so many loadouts and to surround your core of just your super efficient Arcanauts with that I've been tinkering with it a lot. The big takeaway is I like Arcanaut Admirals a lot. I like having a source of fight for profit in every deployment group. So 3 leaders is something I always am going to build with. The kind of flex slots in the list would be between the mortar and another Aether Cannon. I like the mortar is just sort of you're against a wide open, an unknown field. I like the mortar for its ability to give chaff models from really good distance pretty consistently. But the Aether Cannon is probably where I would go in the future. Is cutting the mortar and bringing a second Aether Cannon. And I've been toying with the Engine Master slot. I like the move tent flyer, but in a list that's just designed to be really efficient, it's really, I think I'm probably spending too many points there. So I've been looking at triple Admiral, triple Aether Cannon lists.
Yeah.
Or downgrading the Tim to a Mizzen Master to keep the flyer. There's a lot of ways to go with it. The big core is you want a lot of pistols, and I like all of my units to shoot. I don't like the Engine Master on the ground pounding Engine Master, and I don't like spears in these kind of lists. I don't like getting units tied up in melee with all your other guys not able to shoot in. So I like all my units to shoot. I love standing back and just shooting with my Admiral. And then if people try to charge my mortars, he's a good melee fighter. Yeah, just kind of an all-around list, but definitely designed to stand back and shoot as much as humanly possible. You just want triples, pound it, fight for profit, and grind it out in the shooting phase.
How did the dirigible suit and the mortar feel? Chucking those, low dice but pretty heavy impact with the 3/6 damage profiles on them.
I like the big gun on the Engine Master because the list is generally kind of a massed fire list, right? You need to get a lot of shots off to do any damage with a lot of the units.
But playing against it, the gun does a lot of work, especially because if Engine Master is the guy popping fight for profit, then boom, you typically have we played on objective mission or treasure mission. So yeah, you have access to a 4.5-3.6 shot, which is super strong.
That's
And then
brutal.
also the other thing to keep in mind is that the Mizzen Master only has 20 wounds, and you're running him into combat, and 20 wounds is okay, but it's not going to stand up versus something way bigger. That going from, we'll talk about this in the next list as well. Going from 20 to 25 wounds is a kind of noticeable bump in survivability.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like to keep it. I mean, you kind of waste his melee profile. I mean, you're spending points on it, and he always wants to kind of like be moving and shooting. But it's where I would consider making changes. Just because of the sheer amount of points. I think you can go to 11 models, and maybe downgrade that. You really don't. I'm like, I've been playing the game since 1.0, and I still have this like lingering doubt in the back of my mind. Like, I still really want that speed somewhere in the list, but a lot of times you just don't need it. And you pay a lot of points for it. So there's still some work to be done between now and Adepticon, but obviously the core KO is just inherently a strong faction.
I agree with that. I think the speed thing's an interesting point, right? A lot of 1.0 promoted speed. Now it's almost like we're building to attack the mission packs that we're going into. So if you didn't have a need for a treasure grabber or a need for like a dragon piece or anything that's crazy fast with flying, what do you think he'd be replaced with? You said you drop him down and take up like 2 more models. Would that just be something else in like a pistol, or because 275 is a lot, and like looking at KO stuff, that's a lot of toys you could play with.
Yeah, I think that like the first list I looked, the first after the event, the very first thing I did was sketch up like knocking him down to another admiral, which frees up 135 points. And then with those points, you can just straight in add another big gun, like bring in another Aether cannon, and have like 25 points left over, which is a little awkward because that means you can't downgrade your mortar to another Aether cannon and get enough points for another pistol. But you could just add the Aether cannon, move the mortar to another Aether cannon, free up 45 points, and just take a look at what blessings you might want to play with. KO isn't like the most blessing friendly faction because so many of the blessings are like improving your melee fighters or survivability in melee, and KO's like your survivability is like staying out of combat. Like adding wounds and toughness like doesn't do a ton to your survivability.
You just kind of want that strength to be able to hit more consistently, probably.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. If you get left with 10 points somewhere, you basically can't use it because I think you can only chuck it into crits, but that's only on melee. So you literally, yeah.
Yeah. So you end up with like 45 points and you're like, I don't know what I'd do with that. I could upgrade my company captain to what's the 135 leader? I don't know. There's ways to go. It's not the gunnery sergeant, who I don't like that much anyway, but
Either chemist.
The chemist.
Yeah, just roll tons of dice.
Just roll tons of dice.
Oh, yeah. He's like the 6 dice guy, right?
Yeah.
But he's closer range, though. He has no minimum, which is awesome. So he could fire into engaged, which would solve that issue for him. But he's also like, 6 dice, 3 strength or something crazy like that.
Yeah. So I looked at a list. It was like, okay, what if you put a chemist in there, cut a pistol, and added the strength blessing to him and roll like 6 strength 4 dice? Like I said, the faction is outrageous. There's so many weapon loadouts that are all like kind of compelling. There's also the leader from the Underworlds box, Bjork Thundrick, who is somewhat interesting. You can also spend some points and take an unnerfed volley gun. Enric Ironhail
he's
on that box is like an OG volley gun that was not nerfed when volley guns got nerfed. So there's places to spend the points. I think the big thing is because most of the event, my engine master found a high point and didn't move the rest of the time. He shot from a decent vantage point, and if you're going to do that, you can just do that in the deployment phase and save 135 points by just deploying into good firing lanes. Get another admiral in there who I really like, and then you can play around with the points from there.
It's just wild to me. Really 275. Sorry, what you say, friend?
Oh, I was just saying, I like Enric Ironhail. Like, I keep coming back to looking at that. Like, volley guns were so good in 1.0, and like having access to one. I think it's expensive, but
And I think there's only two factions that can like really counter off on this. One being the new Season Sigmar Castlights, and the other one is Mirror Match versus KO. So you don't really mind chucking low strength dice, ton of them, because you're not really taking that damage back.
yeah, and like I said, 1.0, I played Spiders at the end, and that's when you fall in love with just rolling a million dice.
Yeah.
It's like a one,
Were they
one
8 dice?
8 dice, yeah, per like 35-point model. They each got roll 8 dice.
It's back when they didn't understand how the game worked. They're just like, yeah,
No
probably just
clue.
lots of dice will be fine.
And there was no counter mechanic in the game either at the time, so like it didn't even matter. You just go in there and roll 16 dice, and like you crit them like 4 times, and like deal 8 damage with your 30-point model to whatever toughness. Didn't matter. But yeah, these guys will just wear you down with Stru. I mean, Arcanauts with pistols are outrageous for their point cost. That's kind of a pretty known factor, I think, in the game right now. Yeah, just dwarves. And they're just outshoot everything. I haven't played them against Castellites. I heard some rumblings before we started that would not maybe go my way, but yeah.
They got the nastiest counter to them in the game, probably. Luckily, it's brand new, so nobody's playing those in person yet, right? So you don't have to worry too much about it.
Exactly. I haven't run across it yet. They shred. This list will shred like low model count, high toughness warbands all day long. You're pretty good against the swarm warbands too, because your mass pistol fire will just kill like 2 or 3 models around, and you have the huge activation advantage really early on. Your mortars can like sit back and get you activation advantage in round 1 with that long range, kill 2 chaff models sometimes with Fight for Profit. So yeah, I think it's a really good, well-rounded list in its core, and you can play around with how you allocate it from there.
Well, that's one list down. We got 15 or 16 more to go here overall across 4 events.
Lists. Let's go.
Good stuff, Fred. I like it.
Second place, and we'll kind of start talking about how blessings, because we did allow flex blessings in our tournament, and how blessings sort of affect how some of the warbands play. So second, we had David taking second place as usual. This time still taking Slaves of Darkness, and bringing double Varangard with Demon Forged Blade, a Dark Oath War Queen, and 4 Marauders with Flails. So committing 985 points, 7 models. Primary use of the 15 points remaining was to take Dark Oath War Queen up to 24 wounds.
That seems pretty sound use of those points for sure. She got that 5 toughness, so she wants to kind of be swooping in, killing some chaff models and stuff like that.
Yeah, such a good value on a lot of bespoke leaders too. When blessings first came out, anything with like 5T that was stuck at 20 wounds, like 20 wounds just disappears fast. Giving the extra 4 sometimes is a difference of going into round 3 or 4, where typically it would just fall short. Yeah. And I think this is a great usage of points, and it makes her a little bit more of a scary tank when he's already got 2 mobile anvils coming in already. It's pretty clever.
Couple of speedy nasties running around the board.
Big chunky Ember boys.
What I like about specifically putting on the War Queen, or putting your extra wounds on your 20 wound chaff killers, is it's a whole nother crit they can survive from the units you're bringing them in to fight. Like if you're going to use your Dark Oath War Queen to round up chaff models and just butcher them down with those 5 attacks, 4 wounds is a lot. It's not like you're going up against, like, you're going to put her in combat with like a Gut Lord or something where those 4 points are just going to evaporate. Like that's a full round of combat to survive against a chaff model. So I like that. Obviously, I was talking before the show how much I like Marin guards. They're great. I don't have any other thoughts. They're just super great. They're really fun to play with. They're really good at projecting force anywhere you want it across the board. So,
yeah, we kind of had a discussion on Discord a while back with Salty, and he likes the War Queen now too. We've converted him; he's a believer.
Yeah, we were kicking around like double War Queen lists like in early 2.0 when we were starting.
But he likes her. But he likes her for the ability where she can give a +1 attack bubble.
Whereas by the Dark Gods.
Yes, whereas we're just was it Champion of Darkness, the rampage on a triple, which David pulled that off twice versus me. I think he managed to get a couple triple rampages off.
Or you sound like you got buzzsawed. Like you got Fred just blowing you up on a treasure mission. You got War Queen just chewing through you, poor guy.
We'll cover my list next. I wasn't there to win it. I wasn't planning on playing, but we had to have an even number for round robin.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The thing, obviously, of course, the list is going to be dice heavy with the two Variant Guards eventually. My favorite thing to do with Variant Guards is move them every round, like move and pop Relentless Killers every round, just zigzag across the board. That way, like you're getting your full value out of those points, right? Like once they stop moving, you're paying for that speed. But if you can zigzag them and take out targets of opportunity every turn, so you want like 2 decent doubles for them, and then obviously I like getting triples is hard, but yeah,
that triple can sometimes turn that. If you use the charge, if you just want to clean something off the board while you're positioning as well, it can be really nice. If you're just, something's got, 5-6 wounds left over, sometimes it's worth that triple because you're basically getting an action out of it instead of having to use an attack action. So it's just a nice flex piece to have for sure.
Absolutely. And I harp on it like every time I'm on the episodes is like when you can get extra actions worth of out of your dice, like that's what you want to be doing with your dice, right? Is like getting actions out of it, which is why I like Variant Guard so much. They can get functionally a free action on a double with a decent double, like they get a free attack action out of a double. But yeah, that triple can turn into a free attack action or a free action very, very easily. So they tend to eat up a lot of dice, I guess, is my point. So you really want to put your War Queen in a position to like survive without being babysat with dice if you have to. And I think that you usually can if you put her up against the right models. That's a good attack profile.
When you got 2 Variant Guard, you're picking your battles pretty easily in this.
Yeah.
And you got your 3-inch range flails, right? So again, you're pretty flexible on the board where you want to put stuff and how you want to fight.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and then also if even if the War Queen does get in trouble or any of the pieces get in trouble, you can just like start foregoing actions and just react for the 3 heal. Again, it's just so annoying, right? Like I just got to finish the guy off, and like the Marauders have effective like 16 wounds.
Yeah, it makes your Variant Guards really expensive, but I have a couple lists kicking around that's like Variant Guard with the free reaction, and it just like every turn just gain 3 wounds, and then just like be completely unkillable with 6 toughness, 30 wounds, and gain 3 every time you're attacked. But it's obviously you're turning it.
No one would attempt to kill it at that point, right? They would just be like, just let it do whatever.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about it too, a lot of people complain about Cavalry's base, how it's like a big base on a more crowded board, it's a little tougher. But having that big base, I think really, really stops charge lanes by the enemy or by your opponent. It stops people being able to go where they want. You can kind of effectively project and clog up the board. So you control more than just pumping him there. And then like you guys were talking about before on the triple, if he's just zipping around, all of a sudden they had an area to go to, now they don't. The model's so flexible in what it does, it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
The trick is you got to paint them. You got to paint all that chaos down.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so bad, especially when you have 2 of them in the list. I could like just the idea of painting a second one just breaks.
Dave did it. Dave did it. We got him that. I got him that second one. He had that sucker painted in like a week.
Yeah, they look nice, but.
Props to David, not only on the second place, but the second Variant Guard being painted.
Yes.
The real hero.
I think that's the even more impressive accomplishment.
Right.
So then rounded it out. So I played Legionnaires. I got a commission paint job back and wanted to play them. They look great. Don't have any pictures here for the cast, but I played the basic mid-range list that we saw at the beginning when they first got introduced. Had the leader, had the mutant door, 3 horn helms with axe, and the Centurion Marshal as a big centerpiece. So it was fine. Horn helms with axe are great, critting for 6. Centurion Marshal quad was kind of iffy. There's a lot of text there, but overall I had a good time. Played to a draw versus local legend Death Dealer Dan, who painted up Black Talons. And there's some potential here. So we kind of talked about Black Talons a little bit earlier in the cast as I'm kind of shuffling things around. And so we kind of talked about Black Talons earlier in the cast. And So the play style is kind of built around the 5 of them, and it's just essentially like all 285 points is sunk into Knave, and you have 2 other guys that are gonna like just feed her activations, and it's just activation economy, and you're living and dying by her, right? 6'5", 2'4" profile, 7-inch movement, so she's gonna get to where she needs to. The doubles to give her the bonus actions have a range, so you do have to kind of like position kind of carefully. But she was like super strong, pulled out a rampage on the last turn of the game. I was ahead on a Reaper type mission, and a rampage got Knave 2 kills to even out the game, forcing a tie. The Archer is pretty good as well. The triple on the Archer was super strong, kind of streaky, but yeah. Again, 5 models is kind of a pain. The Mage is kind of like the weak link there, I feel like. But overall, in terms of like how it's designed, I think it's pretty well designed in terms of like what they kind of intend to do, right? Hey, you had this badass hero, and right, let's just feed her activations and just let her do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, sort of like the Unmade, where it's like you get your blissful one just kind of like moving across the board and slicing and dicing. I think Neve is really good, and I think I would cut every other model out and play in other models instead, is how I would build Black Talons. But,
I think when you turn her into just an ally, I think not having the efficiency of the action economy boosting options for her, I think she really starts to fall behind. Like, I think I'd rather take an Akkelian King if I'm just going to have one extra model, because you get the fly on it. It's more, it's a few more points, and they're not a 1-to-1 for sure, but I just feel like you can spike harder with the King. He's a lot more mobile, not just the 3 inches, but having fly, you can really put him wherever. 5 more wounds. I think he's only 4 toughness probably, but you do have the option of the 2-inch range, which can be really nice. So, but like, not to say like if you're gonna have her as an ally, I think you just need something that can pop it, maybe a Questor or something like that. I've seen people playing it in the new Vulcan Flame Seekers, just to be able to give her free moves and stuff like that too, which again, she's getting that economy out of dice somewhere.
Yeah, I like the Kings a lot. I mean, they're basically like Orders Vanguard, right? They have Storm of Blows and they're fast.
Mm-hmm.
And they do similar things well. But yeah, the Mage that's a lot of points for just not a great model. The Archer is fine, but you need to spend dice on it, and the list is already really dice heavy. I don't know. And as far as your list goes, Warren, the number one thing, it's a beautiful model. I really like it, but I would probably replace the Centurion Marshal. I know. Or a Vanguard, brings a lot to the table, but I know you weren't building this one to be cutthroat competitive. So
no, this is one of the several lists I have or one of the several warbands I have in my collection that's just there for like, hey, this is a themed thing. I can play it versus newbies or have it to lend out or something like that.
Warren, was it fun? Did you dark pact people?
I never dark pacted. No. I got the spear off a couple times.
You played him wrong, man. You could have won. You just got to
for sure, man.
Baby.
When I shared the picks, when I shared some of the picks on Discord, yeah, I got reminded of the dark pact memes. It's been a while.
It's not a meme. It's real life. My dude ran 3 Decuriarchs in a list for utmost dark pacting.
Shout out Tough Tootin' Baby on Discord. What a legend.
Goodness.
Always dark packing all the time.
Doesn't even fear the D6 rollback. He's like, whatever, dark pact. I'm like, it's got 35 wounds. You just did 3 damage. He's like, it's worth it. Okay.
One thing for Dan's list, just with the Black Talons in general, I like the design idea behind, I think it's Shikana, she's the archer. I really like that for making spike range damage. Obviously, Aether Cannons are like the gold standard for being able to project serious damage. I like having to spend more on it because I think there's times where those, everybody's in agreement. Aether Cannons are great, right? And they have the ability to get buffed. So I like that you kind of have to spend a pretty sizable resource to get that impact, and I think she can be more impactful depending on what the value of the dice is, if I recall the ability correctly. But I just kind of like that. It kind of balances it out for me a little bit because I think you can get into games that are fairly uninteractive when you're just, just sweeping the board with these crazy high damage profiles. So having a bit more of a decision to make, I think, is just a better and like healthier place maybe for the game to be. And then you really think about keeping her or not bringing her, right? It kind of makes the internal synergy of the Black Talons a little more interesting to have to build around, which is, again, I play this game to make choices, and that's, I think, an interesting choice to make.
So the one thing I also noticed too, you have 1,000 points for the 5 models. It's 980, and that leaves room for either two crit buffs or putting the 1 strength on Shikana's bow. So if Shikana goes to shoot, she's going to more or less have a higher chance to guarantee that damage on an impactful. Or Lorelei, whatever her name is, the elf, although she is the weakest model here, she is 3/7. She's 3 dice for a mage, 3 strength, 3/7 damage. You could bump her strength up and just clean chaff effectively off and just run her for 5. So there is a little bit of flex in there. I do agree she's the weakest of the bunch. And to piggyback on what Mike was saying, Shikana having to have a high value triple lets you make better decisions in terms of what you're assigning your dice to. Otherwise, you're going to just spend the whole time feeding Hendrik, Rostis, or Knave dice to move an attack where you can also just take something out. I think she's 15-inch range. So, hey, that Aether Cannon's looking pretty good over there if I just sit there and pop a headshot and clean it off the table in one go. It is definitely a little bit more decision making, and I do like it.
From a design standpoint, I don't disagree. From a purely, if you were just looking to like absolutely min-max your list, I'm going to take 70 points less for an Aether Cannon like 100% of the time, I think. But I agree with you that it is a more interesting game piece in terms of competitiveness. I just feel like it's so streaky, like high value triples plus that in a decent position at the right place, right time is like, you feel like you just got completely blown. I mean, like, you're just like, I can't believe how much damage I just took. Low value triple or a high value triple early in the game when you're not in your firing position, it just, everything has to come together just right. But if it does, you're gonna raise some eyebrows. People will be like, "Let me see that ability." I don't believe it.
That's how you know it's good, when somebody's like, "Hey, can I read that real quick?"
It's like the original sneaky stab from Gloomspite Gets. The first time it happens to you, you're like, "That cannot be what that says."
What is it? It's tearing bite.
That's right.
Yeah, tearing bite. Exactly.
It's range tearing bite, which is bananas if you think about it.
Yeah, tearing bite is like insane, and range tearing bite is outrageous. So, but it comes on an expensive model that doesn't do a ton without that triple. But its potential is always going to be sitting there. And again, 15-inch range lets you do some messed up things.
I know Laura has the weakest profile, but I think that model might be my favorite out of the bunch. Just like that, the hovering, the floating, it looks so good.
Fun to paint. It was a lot of fun to paint.
Yeah, cool mod. I agree. Cool mod. Breaks up the like, we're just a bunch of people in big chunky gold profile with the rest of the warband.
So next up, we can do a brief discussion of the Warhammer World Tourney results. Keep in mind, there's actually a great video that Itan from Offman and Musings did, and that covers this pretty well already. We're going to cover the top 8 or so, but before we get into that, just know that the missions were very, very elite heavy. They played Cursed Prize. That's the new version from White Dwarf of the relic that eats half your hit points every turn, half your wounds every turn, but then you get to like activate it. And also Brutal Conquest, we hadn't played that one, but that's the one that like obviously rewards like the biggest guy on the board. You have a chosen champion and they rack up points. So the top performing list you're going to see is kind of reflected based on that mission selection.
Yeah, I've also played against Demetrios in our league. He ran almost an identical list for the last league in November. There was a little bit more constraints on it because it was a specialized list building league, and it's pretty scary. If he starts rolling, it can start just coming down and avalanche you on any type of kill mission. We were doing a treasure mission when I faced him, and it still gets in there and claps. He also painted them gorgeously.
Yeah. On the train, I think he painted it on the train too.
Right.
The man's a maniac, a delightful maniac.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
got it.
I got this picture that came out. I think he got that after the event. The picture in the case was great looking too. So he ran for 195, Protector Prime, Errant Quester with Grand Spear for 170, Soulsworn Knight Relictor, and then 3 Paladins with Star Soul Maces. So 6 models, 995 points. And obviously, the Paladins with the Star Soul Maces are the stars of the show here. 1 in every deployment group, 3/5, 4/8 profile, and everything is kind of built around with the Questers just getting them into combat between Furious Avengers and the Questers. Like, they're going to get into the fights they need to get into.
Yeah, it's a tough list. It surprisingly sneaks up on you.
I love Paladins with Star Soul Maces. It's one of my favorite profiles in the entire game. It's just so efficient. Like, there's not a wasted point on that profile as far as like what you get for the points. All those points are packed in or right where you want them. Like, it's just maximum damage for the amount of points you're spending. Like, yeah, they're super good.
It gets better. It gets better. We'll see a couple lists that use them. So yeah, actually a handful of warrior lists and options here that we're gonna see repeated. We're gonna see a few more Paladins, a couple other options as well. But yeah, Protector Prime and the Quester with Grand Spear, a couple of range 3 guys to give you a little bit of reach there. It's pretty neat. The Knight Relictor has a range attack as well. So besides the heavy hitters, the close up heavy hitters, everyone else has the ability to kind of like reach out and touch somebody as well.
Yeah, and if you're not worried about specifically controlling objectives, range move 3, range 3 can really sneak up on you if you're just not paying real close attention, because so few models in the game have a profile like that. All of a sudden you're getting poked by these models that do insane damage because, again, all their points are in that damage profile, and they project force. I haven't played against this list exactly, but I played against the similar like warrior super heavy lists, and it's really hard to keep your key pieces out of harm's way, and you always feel like, why can't I outmaneuver like this list? And it's like they just find a way to get that piece in and poke you, and once they start hitting, they will catch up on that model count really fast.
That's why I love playing those elite lists, because you just, it doesn't look great when your opponent deploys 10 and you deploy 6, but then all of a sudden, hey, let's start fighting. That sounds great to me. And then, round 2, I'm up a model on you out of nowhere. So, and just that, it's crazy to me that like a model with a 3-inch move has a better threat range than a regular like 4-inch move, 1-inch range model. It's wild to see that kind of flipped on its head. 6-inch threat range for a 3-inch.
It doesn't feel like that should be true. And you're like, my 4-inch move guy should be outmaneuvering you. And it's like, no, I just move up and poke you and now you're dead.
Plus the synergy with the free moves that they can give them in there. They're just like, what's happening? Some kind of angry beehive of paladins just zooming around.
Yeah. It was really shocking to me the first time it happened to me, like how you have to play it smart. Obviously, you can't lose a single model unexpectedly, right? If you're playing a 6 model list, you can't be like caught unaware, like, oops, I didn't realize I was hanging this guy out here or whatever. You really got to marshal it. All your abilities have to go to get you guys in the right place at the right time. But yeah, really, really cool list.
Yep. If I had one piece of criticism, it's I love protectors. That's what kind of got me into Warrior Chamber as well. The strength 4 on Protector Prime, that I guess strength 4 on all the protectors, really, you start to feel that versus certain matchups where you're hitting on 5s. That can be kind of rough. Having the strength 5s and 6s, and again, we'll see some other options here for leaders and things you can take in Warrior Chamber to kind of get around that. So instead of the protectors, another top contender for best leader in Warrior Chamber.
Stormcast have so many leaders, right? You can always find a profile that you want somewhere in there. So
one thing that I was talking to him about, because he was asking me about like, how do I play in Hrothgorn if I counter him, or appear about it? Like, this was during our league and preparation of it. He was able to take his Knight Relictor, which has the quad, where he could just teleport paladin or whatever he wants around the board, and then he just walks in and engages. He told him he got it off, stuck it on an actual Rothgorn, and just didn't let him react that way. So not only do you have the doubles for the free movement from the quester, not only do you have the Furious Avenger, because like if you're playing a shooting army, you're going to attack ping a couple points of damage on there because you're not just going to let them walk at you for no reason. Then they're getting all these free moves and bonus economy, and once they're there, they're able to touch you from 3 away. It surprisingly has a lot more agility than you would think for what this is. And the Knight Relictor being low key, a absolute star, being able to throw hammers so you could range project. I think it's move 4 instead of move 3, and being able to teleport any other piece here to where he needs it to be is actually pretty crazy. And I think a lot of people just completely forget that he could teleport, because he did it to me and I was like, wait, what? Like, you, what? And it just happened. It's crazy.
Any Stormcast.
Yeah.
Except the only thing they don't technically have right now, it's come up a couple of times, is that teleport. It seems like it should work for Neve and the Black Talons, but technically that isn't FAQ'd right now. Like when they changed the FAQ for that ability, they weren't included, obviously, because they weren't out yet. But yeah, anything else that's big and chunky, zip it around.
Yeah. And, you know, you just happen to have access to paladins, which are turns out like the perfect target. You couldn't ask for anything better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, congrats, man. That was incredibly fun list it looked like to play, and won that tourney. It was a pretty big tourney too, so congrats to Demetrios. Phylax on Discord.
For sure. Dude's a great guy.
So second place, 301, we have Sam Wheeler, and this is just straight one box Quester Soulsworn. He kept which one did he keep at home? He actually kept the Grand Spear at home, took everyone except the Grand Spear. So he took the Grand Hammer, Great Sword, Great Axe, Dueler, Knight Relictor, Quester Prime.
That's fun
So
that all of the Quester options were on the table in the final game then. All 6 ones you can have. That's funny.
Yep. Not a lot to say about this one. Again, I think this kind of proves, well, at least the mission, based on the mission pack, I think that might have had something to do with it, but this kind of shows that, yeah, even though you don't think that, one box warbands are viable, like this is, example of where, here's a performance by one.
Yeah, I can definitely like picture a lot of mission types and terrain combos that a list like this might potentially struggle with, but it's certainly going to excel in a lot of other ones. Like, man, I don't know. Once they wade in, like if you're playing Plague Bearers and stuff, like they're going to start chewing you up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take you a lot of activations to bring any one of these models down. Like, that's going to be tough.
Yep. And there are no sludges in combat. They got strength 5s.
Yeah.
Guys that matter.
Yeah,
I mean, they are Stormcast, so they do fall to the old ye old roll a 6, and it dies pretty quick.
Yes.
So I mean, they are tough. They are really there. So definitely, I'm interested to see what his path was to get there, because I believe when we're all excited to see the lists and everyone was like, Questers, second place. What? I thought they were trash. And the player apparently is a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Guy was really, really knowledgeable in what he has to do. And I agree with what Fred said. There's probably a lot of terrain and matchups for missions. Like in an objective, like a Rumble Pack, this would just disintegrate, right?
You
6
would have
bodies, you can't cover that.
You would have such a frustrating day. Like you would just feel like you were playing like a completely different game than other people.
Right. You're playing checkers, your opponent is playing chess. You're having Happy Meals, they're having filet mignon. Nothing's going your way.
Just
So,
hoping you painted him well to try to win best painted that day. You're like, that's the only reason I brought him.
Yeah.
They are cool looking. So I mean, it's cool to see this go. It's all action economy, just like the last list, right? And some good overall stats. We just have some money ball stats above average a little bit, and hopefully you don't get 6s rolled against you, and there you go.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Getting crit to death is a real concern with only 6, anyone with only 6 models, but Stormcast spend points on toughness, and getting crit to death is a real concern. If you go up against, especially lists with like high crit values like Horns of a Shut,
Mm-hmm.
like you could have a real bad time against flamethrowers with a list like this, right? Like a couple of bad rolls and those 5 crit damage on those cheap models is going to chew you up. But that's the game we play. It's crit.
Also, Shout out to Warren running the Curie arc. I heard Dark Pack goes right through that armor.
Doesn't even notice it.
Come on, run another one.
Next event.
Calling it right now.
If it's not large enough and we need staff bot, that's what we got.
Dark Pack bot, just that's all it does. It's
That's
there.
That's it. Doubles on 5s and 6s for days.
So moving on here, I love this one. So we got Horns of Hashut, played by Tobias Trendle, and this is a variation of the list that we've seen before with blessings applied, Ruinator Alpha with heavy flail, +1 movement on it.
That's really interesting because the Ruinator Alpha is not great. So spending points to let's get him in combat faster is really interesting to me because it's like he is just a standard hero profile. Like he's got 2 inch range, which is fine. But it's not like you're like, boy, I can't wait till he catches up to you. Then you'll see. I don't know.
I kind of wonder if he used it to keep him as more mobile because he's got that the triple ability is really good that he has.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
So I wonder if maybe that was the intent was to, and you got 2 inch range too, right? So you can kind of whack stuff that can't whack you efficiently back. So I think maybe I can see it working. I'm obviously came 3rd place, right? At whatever he had going on, did something right. But it's definitely not expected.
And the thing is, it's not like you could, if you want to play Horns, and Horns are really good, you have to take the Ruinator Alpha. You don't have another leader option. You have to take it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not a real exciting model. 20 wounds.
It feels like attacks.
4-4-2-4. You wouldn't as an ally unit, you would never be like, I'm slotting that guy right in. He fills a need. He's just a very generic, right? The ability's good, but the profile's Yeah, look what you get for 290 on that Fomoroid Crusher.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, +1 attack, 4/6, 4/8 profile, and then also you got 2 demolishers with flame hurlers, 5 shatterers, 9 models, 995 points with that setup. And you could do something different again with the blessings on the alpha. You got room to put strength on them or something like that, possibly if you feel you need a punchier one. I think.
I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just it was really surprising when I saw it that's what you want to do with your points.
But using it. But like what Mike was saying, right? Using as a move 5 utility piece, right? You have enough killing power. You have the Fomal Crusher, which is more than likely going to be the most dangerous guy on the board. You have the threat of triples to nuke Chaff from 2 flame hurlers.
And
you can
not Chaff either. Demolishing anything. But 25 wounds or less, they're in real danger from a
right. So you can afford. If you have a triple to spare or something like that, you can afford to use the Ruinator as just kind of a utility piece.
Sure. So the Ash Bomb is within 6 of the fighter. Putting him up to move 5 gives you effectively 11 inches of projection to place that Ash Bomb on a move. And that's kind of wild. They think they're going to win a fight. They think they're going to gang up on you. All of a sudden, -1 to a bunch of stuff. Your boy's there sitting on the point. It's not a bad call.
You can swing it 16, right? You can double move, get that 6 inch range on it, and all of a sudden the fight on the other side of the board with your shatterers that are good pieces to fight with, all of a sudden they're hitting like they normally hit, and your opponent is not swinging nearly as hard, which can really help.
Right, they're struggling to kill 55-point models. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what shatterers are good at, right? They punch above their 55 points. I noticed, I was going to say, Warren, you put the Ruinator Alpha and the FOMO on here, but maybe the most important profile on this list is the 5 shatterers. They're really, really good. They punch above their weight class. They're surprisingly tanky. They're just good models. This is I was playing a list.
It is the gold standard by which almost all chaff should be evaluated. Either that or move 3. But in terms of a move 4 fighter,
yeah, for sure.
They're kind of built like a move 3 model. At 55 points, but they have move 4. It just almost feels like they should have move 3, just looking at the points in the profile.
And they have 2 inch range, right? So they've got a 6 inch threat range, which is
they're safe. They're safe to just park.
Mm-hmm.
I played a list a lot like this I played the bad Demolisher with
the Trident or the Bident.
No, not the Ruinator, the mid
Demolisher with the shield. Right. Remember the first list.
Yeah, they're
remember the first list.
Right? but to make the points work, like this is before blessings, and I was just playing, but the
Mhm.
list. Otherwise, I played the exact same list minus the blessings, and I had the mid-range demolisher in there, and the list felt insane. And like this is obviously much better. Like get that trash like
Yeah.
140 point.
Right. That's the lineage of this list is from, I can't remember the pilot, but from Kansas City, from the Kansas City tournament. Yeah.
The
And
Mokian crew.
get an extra Shatterer in there and then spend the points on blessings. Like the Fulmorite Crusher, like we were talking about earlier, like there's not a wasted point on that model. Like every single point goes into exactly what you want it to do. It's like slightly faster and tankier than you would expect it to be. And then of course it just puts out damage like an ogre hero.
Mm-hmm.
It-
I've
it-
played
gross.
the FOMOs and Myrmidons lately with that extra attack, and it's amazing the difference it makes. Like that, because you can onslaught up to 5 dice and you're doing 4-8 damage. Like
It's like a monster.
yeah,
You
it's
know?
just so much more consistent.
Yeah, it feels like if you don't want to spend 500 points or more on a monster, you can get that feeling by playing this Fulmorite Crusher right here.
Play
Like,
2 of them.
yeah, it's outrageous. Like the profile's so good. 6 toughness, 35 wounds. That's disgusting. Like that's outrageous.
Yeah.
So
That's a nasty list. And this is an interesting list because it could go to a lot of different tournaments, right? Like it's got some pretty good fighting potential, but it's also, this would probably be pretty decent. Not as good in Rumble Pack, but yeah, still pretty significant in a mid-range, kind of like a more balanced tournament pack as well. This is just a good take all-comer style list, and obviously can smash in a smash pack too.
because you still get 9 models, right? And your demolishers will give you model advantage pretty early. If your opponent tries to like push you on objectives early, your demolishers will show them that was probably a pretty bad idea. But then your shatterers will just outfight most of their chaff models. So yeah, I think I agree. It's just I'm on my short list of best list in the game right now.
Yeah, horns are good. Confirmed.
Horns are very, very good.
FOMOs are good. Confirmed.
Yeah.
Put both of those together. Great.
Yeah.
I will say my one critique is you've got a list called Horns of Hashut, and you have something that does not have horns when you have an option to bring horns in the Myrmidon. The only critique I'll levy at this.
Yeah,
could have brought
fair.
more horns.
It's a fair critique.
A fair point.
He also could have saved. No, he would have been up to 1,000 even with the blessing. Come on,
Yep.
what are we doing here? Big
Yeah,
waste.
you have points.
Yeah, there's technical room for it. Yeah. So 4th place, we had Itan. He's done several videos talking about Wildercorp hunters. And so here you guys list. He's got the Warden with the Grizzled Trailhound, Calthea Zandire, an Arbalester with +1 strength, giving it a 2/5, 4/8 profile. 4 Trailblazers with twin crossbows. His pick for probably one of the best fighters in the faction, and a couple Trailhounds.
Those are monsters, man.
I helped test and play
hard.
this list with him, and I think the Wildercorps are a very exciting faction because they pretty much were like, hey, what did we get wrong with Hunters of Huanchi, and what did we get wrong with K-Knight Shadowstalkers? Let's make it right, put them in a package, and here you go. And there's some cool dudes in the forest. It's awesome. It's a great list. The Arbalester is a mini Hrothgorn, and if you don't respect it, especially with the extra Calthea shot, you just get blasted from 20 inches away, so there's no safe deployment. And on top of that, the Trailblazers can use doubles to make each other fire, or they can use doubles to crit on 5s. Like there's a lot of flexibility with like this mid-range aggression in terms of like fighting range, not so much point value. But it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy thing. The dogs can move and just kind of lock you down and just throw a 60-point model at you without concern. It's a really awesome list, and I love seeing an Arbalester with the strength up to 5. It just absolutely blasts stuff. However, if you miss though, or it gets engaged and locked down, it's 190. It's almost a third of your list just kind of just sitting there doing nothing. With 12 wounds.
I was going to say 3 toughness, 12 wounds for almost 200 points is scary. You gotta know what you're doing with it, how you're deploying it, keeping it clean so it can shoot. But 20-inch range is a lot on a Warcry board. You really can't hide from it effectively once it gets in position. And like you were saying, the very first thing I said when I saw this list is like, this is like the Hunter's Huanchi like that I wanted, right? Like this twin crossbow guys, like, I mean, I was talking about how good pistols were on Arkanauts, and it's like, you know, these are better. I mean, they're obviously much more expensive, but that's a really good profile. Like 8-inch range with no minimum range, 4 attack is scary. They will swarm you, and you will go down to mass fire against those guys.
And again, you can check out Off Meta Musings for his breakdown of it, right? He makes those direct comparisons to Hunters of Huanchi and the pros and cons of each, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yep, completely the same reaction as the hunters. So you're just, oh, you're trying to kill me. I'm just not going to be there anymore. So like the Arbalester, if it gets engaged, if somebody moves in, attacks it, you react, you move out. Sure, you lose a shot. You're going to have to do that anyway. You can't shoot that thing, but you can shoot anything else on the board. So not killing it in one go, even though it's only 12 wounds, not a ton of stuff can, you know, zoom in and just kill something with 12 wounds. So that their reaction can be incredibly effective. I think it's one of the best defensive reactions that exists, is a free disengage.
Yeah.
It's like it's similar to like
KO to do that. Like, and then you go for free.
Yeah, it's like the Slaves to Darkness one. You can heal that 3. Well, what if you just didn't take that 3? What what if you just kind of stretched it out by not letting you attack?
Yeah, really good ability.
And you get more mileage out of it on a 12 wound fighter as well, because that doesn't do you any good if you die in one shot.
Yep.
Right.
12's harder to get through. And just the positioning too, right? Like you're getting a counter action to your opponent's action, so you can put pieces in different places and on or off objectives, all that kind of stuff.
But of course, Calthea Vandire is nutty. Like, just to finish that up, like you haven't even talked how good Calthea is. Her ability's good. She's just overall a well-rounded profile. I like this list a lot. This might be my favorite list that we've seen so far, as far as something like I would enjoy playing, probably.
It's fun.
I really like the look of it.
There's a lot of back and forth between you and your opponent. It's like I come in, I hit, I disengage, like knowing and really evaluating what you can do on your turn and their turn and how to prioritize. You're not always going to be double shooting. It's really a good thinking list that's engaging and rewards a good pilot. And I really like seeing that. It's not just big dumb guys running in and smashing. So it's cool.
It looks like you have to play the list, right? Like it's not
right.
Just
you got to think a little bit.
One thing, and
right.
You gotta be participating, which is always great.
For sure.
Although big dumb guys are great too.
Big dumb guys are fantastic.
I won't tolerate, really digging into those guys. Big dumb guys are awesome.
Big dumb guys are the best.
Except for all the other stuff.
Yeah, the other stuff's not as great. Big dumb guys first.
So moving on at 2-0-2, we had Matthias Martel with the new Cities of Sigmar, kind of a mix of the new models there. Got the Arch Knight, Sergeant at Arms, Cavalier, the Great Herald, Steel Helms. Now, I didn't go into a lot of detail here. Do note that he did have an Executioner and a Blackguard in there that is technically not allowed because those have been put into a separate faction. But and I'm not sure this necessarily captures all the cool new stuff you can do with Castlelight hosts, but it does kind of showcase that, okay, yeah, just the base profiles, there's probably something here.
I like Steel Helms. I mean, like
Steel Helms, I think Steel Helms are great.
Fantastic.
The Herald's unreal. Just the
Herald is beyond good, dude.
Everything in a 6-inch team that has the rune mark. Just, hey, go ahead, take a free move on a tree. Yeah, it's you can move like 7 models for a triple.
They have to move towards him, right?
Right, but you still pass him up as long as it was towards him.
Just has to be less than the distance away he was before.
What's that, Fred?
I was gonna say it costs Soulblight Gravelords a quad for that, and only minions get it. Like you have to take a Necromancer to even do that.
Which is duty, and this guy is not even a hero, and it's just a triple.
Points.
Whatever value triple you want, Calthea has to have a high triple to be good. This guy just goes, whatever, triple ones, let's just move everybody in position wherever I want. Just drag him into engagement for free. Like, it's wild if you actually know how to use it. I do like this bold strategy of bringing, we kind of read, it's like, hey, I'll read half of the new update and bring some old Living City stuff in, or old elf stuff in. It's cool. I do think it reflects the power of what's going to be there for things. The Battle Mage has a quad that buffs everything. However, the Arch Knight as well as the Herald can only affect Castellite. So they only affect in faction, which is super unique way of playing things. However, it does, the Cavalier and the can get that free move off the Herald. So all of a sudden you're getting a free 9-inch move across the board to lock something in place. What if you gave a Varangard just a free 10-inch move, right? Like just like, go ahead. Cool. Like it's awesome. Not as good as the Varangard, obviously, but the fact that the action economy is still there. They also the only other faction with the Arch Knight or the Marshal with the heirloom weapon that on a double gives an AoE onslaught. Previously, it was a War Chanta for Ironjaws, and that was fringe
didn't have good
playable depending on the
targets.
list. Yeah, the targets weren't really there. You could play it and like you might just roll dice and just out dice people, but this is on a 120 body. It looks like you put the 4 wounds on it to bring it up to 19 wounds, and just for a double, it's also amazing model too, by the way.
Oh, all the models are good. The whole faction looks amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big miss here is not having the ogre with the tower on its back. Like if you
Huge
could
miss,
take
yeah.
that, like that's just hemorrhaging value to not have that.
Both in looks and play, right? But
Exactly.
That guy draws line of sight anywhere. Nobody hides from him.
24-inch range, I think, on the guy in the tower,
Yeah.
right? Just full on sniper mode. But I mean, clearly though, right? This is a brand new faction. Again,
Right.
little funky just because of the 2 models in there. But replace them with a couple more steel helms, something like that, and I think the list is still pretty effective.
Yeah,
but this was like
steel helms, I think, because you have 5 anyway.
But like this was right after, like this is a little while back now. This is right after the rules came out and already got a top 5 with it at a pretty big event, right? So clearly this faction's got some play.
To be 2-0-2 without even having the correct models implemented, like he has to drop the Executioner and Blackguard, but to just be like, hey, this is not even tuned. This is not even heavy. Like we don't have the big anchor piece for everything. We have enough of this stuff. That's pretty awesome. There's something to say that, and I mean, I hope nothing against Mateus, like he fixes it up a little bit, gets the legal list in, and he's cooking.
I think the list is probably better with 3 steel helms in it. Playing
just with the synergy, the internal synergy.
100%.
So,
moving on. Yep, we have I10's friend Charles. With again, this is a list that Off Meta Musings had covered. So this is using, So this is adding the Hrothgorn Mantrapper package into a Gorger Maw pack to get around the beast restrictions there, and actually added and keep the model count up to still at a respectable 6 models here for the event. And then the choice of Gorger was 2 Gorgers with +1 crit damage. So it's a fairly cheap blessing to apply. I think it's only 10 points. So if you have 10 points to spare, you can do something with that. And so I think Clawback we'll see in a couple more lists. Clawback's already solidified itself as a solid ally to bring in. So great model. But I kind of wanted to hear talk about what the best choice of Gorger is, because now that we've seen Gorgers with clubs, you can make an argument if you have the points for Gorger with Great Club with +1 attack if you have blessings. I'm really torn as to what's the best loadout, and the answer is probably it depends, but kind of want to hear your guys' takes.
In a vacuum, if I have the points, I'm gonna probably take Great Clubs.
Same.
But I'm not going to argue with anybody that likes the stock Gorger. I think the one I would be least likely to take is probably the Gorger with club, but I'd rank them Great Club, regular, and with club probably, depending on how your points work out.
I think it kind of
Yep.
might depend on your mission too, right? Or like your pack or something like that. And like you said, Warren, it depends. I think that's the hardest part. But I think I'd probably put him in the same way, Fred. It's just there's so much variability in what you're going to need, and like these three models, these three profiles do such different things. You know, if you're going to be fighting a ton of chaff, the Great Club's probably not a great option. You're just not chucking enough dice to be doing stuff. But as far as just wanting to bring a nice couple of hammers, they're gonna be the biggest things, nastiest things on the board, getting there, smashing holes and things. But yeah, if you're just trying to clean off a whole bunch of bodies, the regular Gorger being able to chuck so many dice is phenomenal.
I'm a big fan of the building towards your mission type, like I mentioned before. I agree with Mike on that one. I do think the Great Club, if you have the points for it, giving it +1 attack and just being like on a double, it just zooms to you and starts swinging. Fantastic. It's Titan stats right there. Gorgers, the regular one, just 4 dice, weight of dice, right? We discussed before. Sometimes just throwing more dice is good. Is pretty solid for their points. Again, everything has a double and a charge. I believe he just took this list just because the regular Gorgers, because it points fit for Hrothgorn and friends.
And yeah, Hrothgorn is a list building restriction, right? He's expensive himself. Quiv, the package is like 345 points. Like you're gonna have to make some concessions elsewhere in your list to fit that in there. I really like Hrothgorn though, for what that's worth.
This list with Hrothgorn combined with the doubles for all the Gorgers and stuff like that, you're putting damage wherever you want it, anywhere on the board. You got 3 models that can charge, and then you got a model that's shooting. Was it, Rob? Is it 10 inches or 8 inches or 9 inches?
3 to 9.
3 to 9. So yeah, I mean, you're exploding damage wherever you feel like putting it, which is really cool. Quiv obviously has the synergy for Hrothgorn to give him that triple to scoop him up, and you got 4 models out of the 6 that can carry treasure. Sure, Quiv and Bushwhack, and maybe you don't want to be running around with them. They might drop it in a hurry once the breeze starts blowing. But
they have what, 6 wounds?
Yeah.
It's good. It's really interesting to put Hrothgorn in a list where you have projection other than himself. So you have projection in the form of charging through the Gorgers. So you don't have to use the double to bank to see if he kills something. You don't need to make a triple for here you go, boss, for the extra shot. You could kind of just place him in fire and pick and choose to where you go a little bit more liberally. You do, however, risk not getting the most actions out of him. So 2 dice on the range shot can be a liability. However, it's giving you 2 bad choices. Do I deal with the big dummies coming in charging me and they're going to just slap me, or do I somehow put myself onto Hrothgorn to stop the firing so I can advance the way I want to play my game? It's cool. I really like it. And also, like you said, giving more treasure carriers for it is really good.
It's cool to look. I don't think anybody brought Monster Killers, and I don't think anybody brought the Flame Seekers to the tournament. But we had Cities of Sigmar, Will of Core, Gorgers all in the top. Was it 6 of a pretty big tournament? Really cool to see. Just clearly they've figured out how to make new warbands interesting, and go back another release to have the quest doors in there too, right? Like just so many newer warbands that are really showing out and doing really well in a pack is exciting to see, because it means that they're understanding the game that they're making even more so, and making unique play styles that are viable.
Right.
So moving on here, 7th place, we have a 1-box Iron Golems list. Just add Fomo Crusher. And
every list better. If you have the points, you're always going to enjoy adding a FOMO Crusher.
I love the aesthetic of Iron Golems. I think when I first saw Warcry and I saw that like gladiatorial looking like cask on their head, everything looked so sick about them. I'm so happy to see people take not just a counter control list and do pretty decently split even with them. It's really cool. Dominar, super cool model. It's nothing exciting. It's like stock Warcry, right? There's nothing exciting. All your dice is going to be going into probably running your FOMO Crusher a little bit more, or swinging a little bit more with them. The Ogre Breacher's just a, hey mom, I got a discount Titan at home. Drill Master, surprisingly awesome. Runs 5 3-inch range, projecting 8 on a team, with also some other like things that are not very slow. Everything's like move 4, I believe, except for Drill Master and Crusher. So it's cool.
Breacher's good.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing it. I think it's a cool take on an old favorite. It's like having that reimagined classic banana split, but somebody added a little something better in there.
The Fomeroid Crusher on your banana split. Yeah. Dumped it
That's the
on
only way.
top.
I don't know how you guys have it. That's the only way I take it.
I don't know who is. I don't know where people are talking about. It might have been on Discord, right? But it's just like, yeah, chaos. Just in general, like there is arguably no bad chaos factions because you could just add a Vanguard and or a Crusher and make yourself viable.
Mortals.
There's your next challenge.
I have it
Oh,
built.
you just bring a Fly Lord and then you bring Bladeborn and allies. It's technically Nurgle Mortals, but it's got one mortal model.
My Lord is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Lord of Afflictions is my favorite unit in the entire game. But
Super cool, dude.
The problem is they just don't have enough points because their basic infantry is like 140 points or whatever. And it's
There's no chaff.
Tough sledding.
No chaff.
I have a list that's like nothing but shields, and like you just like try to march onto the objectives and counter people for the rest of the game. But like I don't know what else you do with them. But other than that, chaos is hard to build a bad list. Yeah, because I mean you can always put a Formorite Crusher in it. You can always, they have so many options. Like the allies and the leaders are so good.
All right, rounding out the top 8, we had Wargames on Toast, and so he's done videos talking about Gut Rippers as well.
Oh, love Gut Rippers.
Yep. So again, he likes the Bolt Boy boss, taking Torka Tough Skull and Shank. Torka we've seen a fair number of times, a really solid profile for 125 points. Brute boss with Boss Choppa, Clawback, again, 2 solid destruction allies we've seen in a number of lists. Fill it out with Gut Rippers, and you're good to go.
Torka's a second net in that list too, right? You got Shank with the net, and then Torka's tossing them around. So.
Yep. It is on a 2-up net too. It's one of the better ones.
And I was real high on the Bolt Boy boss for a long time, and I kind of cooled off on it recently, but it's still good at what it does. If you're worried about trying to kill stuff like Brugits and stuff like that, it's a pretty good model to do that with. And then your Gut Rippers have how many wounds for 75 points? They have 15 wounds, I think.
15.
Yep.
Yeah,
4.
it's a lot. And with the spears, they have 2-inch range and 15 wounds, so they're hard to shift. Great core of a warband.
The thing I like about Bolt Boys is that you really have, it's similar to Hrothgorn. You've got a difficult decision to make. Do you want to send something into it? And if you do that, if it's a chaff, it's probably it's no slouch in melee combat, but you have to allocate resources into it. Otherwise, if you ignore it, it's just chucking a whole bunch of crazy damage out across the board wherever it wants. So it really forces, it again, Rob said it earlier, it forces your opponent to make a decision of 2 things you don't want to do. I think a lot of people feel that it does underperform, but I think maybe it's because their expectations are that they're just going to purely get the damage out of it. But if you play it as a flex piece where it's like, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of what my opponent wants to do to it, it can be incredibly effective.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is that like if you right when they nerfed the Thunder Fist, it's like I was looking at lists that were kind of playing the Bolt Boy boss in that Thunder Fist slot, and it is not the same. It's not going to give you the damage output of an old pre-nerf Thunder Fist, right? Like that's not what you get, but it's also 170 points. It's a pretty efficient shooting unit in a game where like high damage shooting is fairly expensive generally. So yeah, just a good, efficient, disruptive piece.
It has 2 good modes too. Do you want to sit still, make an aim shot, and snipe out a Stormcast because you're always going to be critting on 4s, and then all of a sudden, you're putting 12 damage on something with 20 wounds that costed them just as much as you, if not more, and it's like one of their 6 pieces? Or do you move, or do you fire 2 with venom encrusted weapons? So you have a 2-5 profile, I think, at that point. So they have a good flexibility, and they're really, really good. I just see a lot of people just sit there and fire and park them there and don't move them, and then you're not contributing to your own game plan. I like he has the brute boss in here to say, I could deal with the hordes on points. If he has a points, it's just insurance. The clawback is also that extra piece of ranged, melee projection. Yeah. So it's basically 10 more points than a mega boss that moves 2 more inches. The charge is 5, not 3. It has crazy engage range. That's got some good wounds. It's got some good strength. Hits hard. It's just good list overall.
I like the clawback a lot. It there's a lot of war bands that it just adds almost a completely new angle to. If you don't have a lot of that explosive movement and projection in your war band, it's a great thing to look at for that. For really efficient point cost, point for point. Charge is just so good. Like units that can charge are that's a powerful ability.
It's one of the best abilities in the game for sure. Absolutely. It's a
game.
build around ability.
Name of the game is bonus actions, right? Anything
Yeah,
that gives you
efficiency,
bonus
right?
actions, efficiency, economy, you're going to usually net tempo ahead on something. And with something that's like as strong and as dangerous as that, that's wild. Imagine if a Mega Boss had move 5.
Yeah,
charge.
exactly. That's what it is, right? It's on a profile. Like a lot of the charge units that we were playing with were things like the Chaos Demon Hounds and stuff. It's like that's like fine. It's like it's a good ability on a decent profile, but it's not on a clawback profile. Like it's not just that it can charge; it's that it can charge on such a good combat profile for that point cost. What else you got, Warren? Yes.
Finally, honorable mention. We have Flesh Eater Courts with double Vargulf Courtier with Blessing.
Baby.
And then the rest of the warband is just chaff, but buffed up to 12 wounds with wound blessings.
Put the chef hat on for this list. This is pure spice. Tasty.
And Vargulf Courtiers, I love Vargulf Courtiers. It's one of my favorite units. I used to play a lot of Flesh Eater Courts, and it does a lot of things really well. It can, like, they were great. I bring them into like Soulblight Gravelords, and they would like move your units early, and then you could put the dice into buffing its attack profile late, and like it'll never ever die. But man, they're expensive. And fitting 2 of them in a list, like also buffed, is amazing.
And blessing them, yeah.
Yeah.
So you go up to 7. Yeah, you go up to 7/5/3/5 with Terrifying Frenzy.
Yeah, Terrifying Frenzy is so good.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
There's a frenzy involved in it too. It's pretty
Yeah.
great.
And of course, Duke's Harriers. Love some Duke's Harriers.
That's
Great
a spicy
model.
pick. I appreciate when people go to the back catalogs of Underworld's like models and are just like, you know what's great? This move 10. Who cares about it? It's just going to sit on points. It's going to be annoying. It's going to go somewhere it needs to go. I think it's brilliant. I love the 4 wound increase on the ghouls. Baffling Parlay makes them crazy survivable. So now all of a sudden you got 12 wounds that's stripping a dice off you. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's interesting for them because of Baffling Parlay, and so it's 4 of them with 15 points allocated to each of them. You're dropping a model for it. It's an interesting consideration to make. Do you want to try to make the individuals more longevitous, or do you want that extra activation overall where you've also still got that reaction? So I'd have to really sit down and kind of think about what I'm doing with them to see if I love the wounds versus just bringing extra model overall. But it's a neat idea for sure. Haven't seen anybody go that hard into all wounds on chaff.
No, I like this. I like this a lot, right? Going from 8 to 12 is like a 50% increase in your survivability.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're like you don't even counter removing a dice to help increase that, right? If you have an unblessed FOMO or Myrmidon or like a Titan model with the traditional 3 dice, going down to 2 dice is brutal, especially if they just go hit, they move and then go hit. All of a sudden, you're at, they only do 8. You're still alive when you would have been dead. You're just eating up time and letting your courtiers move and adjust around the board. Now I did the quick math for the very limited math that my smooth lizard brain can handle. You have 5 models being blessed with wounds, right? That's what, 20 wounds worth extra, where 1 model would just be an extra 8 wounds on there. On top of that, I think it's with
75
this setup.
points.
Yeah, I think with this setup, it's kind of worth it. Unless you were like, the only way I would trade it out, at least for this mission pack, right? Unless we're doing Rumble Pack, then we're just jamming ghouls. We're playing ghouls.deck. So.
Also,
I'll also attest to the efficacy of Baffling Parlay when Warren.
I was gonna go there.
Go ahead. It's your story.
Mollog is easily baffled.
Poor Mollog swinging 1 dice into a ghoul. 8 2 full attack actions.
Hello, ghoul. You shall not pass.
It was a fun moment. Never forget it.
It's terrible. Disrespectful.
So continue on. We do have a handful of lists. We've got the top 3 from NORCRY as well. So here we got KO again. So here we have the Endrin Master making his appearance. We have, again, Strength Blessings on the Eater Cannons. I mixed this up. I absolutely did.
It's all good. We'll forgive you. No worries. That's an interesting list. What do you think about that, Fred, in terms of someone who's a KO player, when you see like these style of KO lists that give like a heavy 2 melee hitters to kind of just get infused, because you don't want to get tangled up, right? Like you're saying, because then your ether cannons are not doing the work it's supposed to. Also,
Yeah.
your only FFP is an Endrin Master who wants to stay back, but he wants to go in and fight. So he's waiting for them to come to him. What do you think about this?
So I think that, and again, obviously the list did well, and
Yeah.
they're obviously very powerful models. Bloodrack Medusa is a great model, but I'm personally of the opinion that Endrin Master is a trap model for the reason you just said. It's got to stay by the Aether Cannons if you want to get fight for profit on the Aether Cannons, which means that if the game plan is going how you want, it is 140 points to just be a fight for profit, which you can get for as low as 90 points on a company captain. And if its melee profile is being used, then your Aether Cannons aren't shooting, or they're not getting fight for profit, or they are, but they are trying to get like in fight for profit, but shoot something else while the injured. It can be a mess. And I think that I like for very close, you have the points here to turn it into a admiral, which can sit back and shoot with the Aether Cannons and still fight decently in melee combat for, I think it's only 5 more points. I'm pretty confident Admiral's 145.
You're
It's
correct.
145, right?
So if you want to have a good melee unit that's going to go like try to solo a different objective or just be a forward piece to engage enemies or countercharge or whatever, Bloodrack Medusa is great for that. It's a great thing. But the problem here is Bloodrack Medusa not only is a good fighter, but it has a really good triple.
Mm-hmm. It's got 2, I think. It's got the net, and it's got the, was it Bathe in Blood?
Yes.
Bathe in Blood's a double, I think, right? Or is that the triple?
I can't remember. Yeah.
But the big one is obviously the Stare, right? Bloodrack Stare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the triple, I believe.
2 up net.
Yeah. And like obviously like the traditional use of Bloodrack Medusa, or like the archetypal use, is you sit there and you net the unit, and then like it pokes it to death like from 2 inches away when it can't move to engage it, and it moves 7. Like it's great, but if it rushes forward, it's not going to get support from the Aether Cannons once it's actually tied stuff up in melee. And if you are taking it because it has good triples, like it's really competing with fight for profit. So I think this is a list with a bunch of good units in it, except for the Endrin Master, who I really don't like. but it's a little disjointed in its game plan. You know what I mean?
The Medusa has that 2-inch range though, so you don't have to get tied up into melee to leave the Aether Cannons free to shoot. You get a little less control of the board, obviously, because you can't force disengages and that kind of stuff from whatever you're fighting. So I think it's, you gotta be playing it right. You don't just want to charge that 7 inches all the way in and get base to base with something. You want to be at that 2-inch range, which honestly, like anytime I bring a ranged attack model for melee, I always basically want to be at that range anyway. I want to force you to come into me. So I can see that one working for sure. It's an interesting piece because I'm thinking comparing this 305 point Bloodrack compared to a Kellyan King.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I think they serve 2 different purposes though, where the Kellyan King's like a shock piece where it just wants to go in, blow something up, move, and go quickly. Mm-hmm. This can go in. The net's on a 3 up. If you roll 2 dice, you roll a 6. It's value of dice. You get net and damage.
Mm-hmm.
And
really good ability. Really good.
Yeah, it's a sick ability. So Bathe in Blood is what's awesome with this, because it's the double that gives, if there's a point of damage on there, it gives her an extra strength and attack characteristics for both attack activations. So you got a bunch of dudes just peppering with little shots. All of a sudden, she slithers up 7 inches. You're at 9-inch range, and then you're going to 6'5", 3'5". That's kind of scary. And then you could just sit there and just slam something repeatedly. So it's kind of wild, and it's a flex utility. I kind of see what he's doing with it now, and I kind of appreciate it a little bit more. And you're not, like you said, you don't have to get it stuck in. It's not that durable. It's 4 toughness on 35 wounds. That will go in a hurry against the right model.
So I comparing like this list to my list, like 275 points for the Engine Master with the original suit versus 305 for this Blood Rack Medusa. I could absolutely see the argument like, hey, if you're going to spend 275 on that, you could spend 305 on this, and it's not going to be a huge detriment. I think that if you're going to use a big melee hitter, it's got to be a model for the reasons we've been talking about. I think I'd be more inclined to take an Achillean King, because the Achillean King, you can move it around the board and support it with doubles. That this list doesn't really, the KO doesn't have great use for doubles anyway, as opposed to the Blood Rack Medusa, which kind of wants, again, it has use for doubles, but like
it's a situational double, right?
Yeah,
it's got a condition. You need to get the damage on there first.
So the main thing I would do is anytime you're looking at Engine Master, just like cut it and put in a
Right.
But other than that, yeah, it's again the pistols are so good and Aether Cannon's so good that like you can surround it with a lot of different things and be successful.
I think we're all of this like minutia that we're breaking down. Turns out you can just bring KO and win. Doesn't matter what you bring. Bring it completely.
It's an
embarrassment of riches. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is. The faction's absurd.
Choices are irrelevant. They're great.
Like deployment group wise, you're kind of a little hamstrung because it's like your Engine Master wants to be with both of your Aether Cannons.
And that was the case here.
So then you have a Blood Rack Medusa and a whole bunch of pistols, which don't have Fight for Profit to support them. So it's like that leaves you with what? Blood Rack Medusa and 2 pistols and then 4 pistols?
Something like that, yes.
The Blood Rack Medusa and the pistols don't support each other well because the pistols are obviously very slow and want to sit back and shoot, where the Blood Rack Medusa is fast.
Maybe you check an extra pistol in the Engine Master deployment, though. I don't know if he did that one, but just an extra body there.
Yeah, that's probably
that your 4 deployment.
But then
he had Engine Master plus 2 cannons in the same deployment group.
Okay, didn't add the extra pistol to that one.
And then like one of your deployment group is 4 pistols, which isn't horrible, but it's not like a real exciting deployment group either, right? Without fight to back it up.
Anecdotally, I just played a game last week where I had a brute boss. I was in like narrative, so it's a little bit skewed, but it was pretty much 1-to-1 from what it would have been in a competitive game. I basically had a brute boss, and it was going straight into a full crew of four pistols, and they gunned him down in like 2 rounds. So lots of shots.
Death, man. They will. Yeah, it's true. But I don't know. It just, the deployment groups are kind of interesting with this. I guess I just like more Fight for Profit is, I guess, what I'm really saying here. But
this was Salty's pack, I think, too. So a pretty balanced pack between missions of treasure scrapping and objectives too. So it's got a good balance so that you can fight where you need to. It doesn't kind of expand all the way into any individual mission type, but it's pretty good for a balanced list.
So to kind of just talk one last thing about that real quick, the one thing I do like about it is it takes the, like, you look at Fred's KO list, you're like, okay, I got to have a fast piece or further range projection to deal with him, and I got to get in there. Once I'm in there and burrowed in and I'm kind of tough, he's got to disengage and sequence correctly to get the shots off. But if you want to dive into those Aether Cannons, the Engine Master will eat you up, because on a double, I think it does go up to like strength 6 or something with like 4 or 5 attacks, something crazy. And it can sit there and kind of protect itself. So you don't have the static, this is how we're going to play against KO type thing going on. It's a completely different workaround. So it probably throws people for a loop if they're not really into the game or if they're not well versed with the sense of the game. So I think that's got definitely a strength to it in its own right.
Sure, absolutely. I agree with you there for sure. And again, it's just like once you have that background of like so many hyper efficient units and pistols and Aether cannons that your opponent is under a lot of pressure to make correct decisions very early against KO because you don't have the maneuver into a good melee first round that a lot of Warcry games like, oh, I'm going to bank my wild dice and do deployment and maneuvering, and it's like KO is like, I'm going to sit here and shoot right now, like you're taking damage right this second. So yeah, Engine Master is a scary melee piece. I mean, you could build a list with like spears and Engine Masters, right? Like that's
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
you could very easily do with KO, and it'd be very
Throw
good.
Calthea in there. Let's go.
Yeah, that's like probably very competitive list too, and it's completely different. That's how good this faction is.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So back now to Stormcast Warriors. We got Paladins again. What's scarier than Paladins? Paladins with +1 attack.
Yes.
And then here we also see the Retributor Prime, the range 1 version of the Paladin with the big hammer. So it's a pretty good leader piece as well. Its base cost is 180, so one of the cheapest leaders you can possibly get. A scary attack profile, putting +1 strength on it for 200 points gives it a 4/6/3/5 damage profile. 2 Paladins with Star Soul Mace +1 attack. He's taking the Starblood Stalkers package of Kixi Taka and 3 Skinks, and then also throwing in a company captain for good measure.
That gets crazy. I'm not sure what the deployments were, but I know it's Autopaddle and I think Talk are the 2 ranged guys for the Starblood Stalkers, and I don't know if they're in the same deployment, but giving them extra dice because they crit real heavy.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets wild. And that's why
Kixi
Kix is
Taka,
just such a good ally.
Yeah, I do know Kixi Taka and company captain were together. I don't think Talk and Autopaddle were with them. You couldn't get the 2 of them together.
Get that range, that wizard attack, get extra dice on that. I mean, you're chucking what, 3?
Yeah, that's
3 dice.
Right. That's the combo there, right? Company captain with Fight for Profit on Kixi Taka turns him into a 4/3/3/6.
He starts at 3 normally?
No, that would be the fully buffed.
Fully buffed, yeah.
Got it. Cool.
You guys range profile down there, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So 2/3/3/6, I wouldn't worry about, but if you're rolling 4 dice now you're going to be spiking some.
Mm-hmm. And Kixi's got the good synergy, that 9-inch bubble to pop. You get a +1 move, +1 toughness. So
yeah, that's a big radius. That's a big radius. It will affect other deployment groups.
But the movements could be very, very good.
Yeah, you put them up to 4s, and then they're tough 7 as well.
Yeah,
like
why not?
Chimera's hitting on 5s.
Nice full crusher,
Yeah, this is a really neat list. And the synergy with what Starblood Stalkers brings, especially to these kind of more elite style lists, they bring the bodies, which you're obviously looking for. Kixi's bringing a buff that you almost always want. Plus, there's 3 models that can bring in these excellent ranged attacks that they can just kind of sit. They move onto an objective, they double shoot, basically, whenever you possibly can. And they're crit fishing, but when they catch something, when they catch those fish, they're going nuts.
Yeah.
Let's dive into this list. Wow.
Finally, we have just Soulblight Gravelords, Skeleton Spam, Graveguard equivalent with the Sons of Velmorn, the whole crew there, Necromancer, Seneschal, Skeleton Champion, 3 skeletons with Ancient Blade, a random Graveguard with Sword and Shield for good measure. So we haven't seen a lot of Soulblight Gravelords. The UK event did not have a lot of Soulblight Gravelords events, or a lot of Soulblight Gravelords top in the standings there. But yes, Soulblight Gravelords is still a thing. It is still real and still very much out there.
This is the opposite of a beginner list. You got 10 completely unique profiles to play here.
I almost ran out of room.
So a couple of the first things is obviously the Sons of Elmorn is a really interesting box. Have they fixed this yet, or is they still?
Nope, still reset full.
Still reset full.
The good news.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. They're for their basically the Graveguard coming back on 10 wounds.
Yeah, and the question with that is, okay, so you take those guys, Marshall, Helmar, and Thane. But the question is always, do you take Sir Jedward Falseborn, right? Like 150 points is kind of a lot.
He's such a tank, though. It's like, what,
Yeah.
30 or 35 wounds, 5
Yeah.
toughness.
Outrageously tanky.
He's
And
just
of course,
it's so hard to leave, but it's a real consideration.
because like you can get like 2 more grave guards like plus for that, which is not bad. And then of course you have his ability to keep King Morlack Velmorn up, like keep your white king on foot equivalent, and then like Sir Jedrin will never die, and so then King Velmorn will never die. And the sibling rivalry is a really good ability.
So good.
So
And you can pop it two times in a list like this, right? Because you've got 2 of the brothers in there, so
Easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't like necromancers a ton, but hey, who am I to judge?
It's a necessary evil for the list.
Yeah, I guess like points wise, you can't really get another decent leader in there without
You could
giving
use-
an auto count.
He's 10 points short of White King on foot.
Yeah, I was going to say, right, that's the other thing you could do. But
So you could drop a
generally-
Seneschal down and then go up and still get a Grave Guard.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, the Seneschal like is sucking up a fair amount of points here.
it gives you another option for is the Seneschal a hero?
Yes.
No,
it's-
is it?
Oh, wait. Yeah, I think he is.
So you've got 3. I mean, I'm guessing they're all
Fact check
deployed
this.
in different groups, so you've got 3 different spots to res, which is probably what the intent was, I would guess, based on
Yeah.
that. Because like you could drop Necromancy, then you've got 150 points to deal with, so you can do what 2 skeletons and a skeleton and 2 Graveguard if you just want bodies as well. But yeah, I never mind if it's a utility piece. I always like having a ranged attack, so I don't have to send them in there and wait for them to die. Yeah, not arguing that a Necromancer is one of your best options in this, but it does have it's got some redeeming qualities to go with some of the
Dance
others.
Macabre is also good.
Yeah, like if you ever spike it, it's insane, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to like build around it, but like the game you do spike it, your opponent's gonna like it's very frustrating to get crushed by Dance Macabre.
Seneschal is not a hero.
Okay. Is
It's
Skeleton
just another
Champion?
embarrassment of riches for skeletons.
Yep.
Is Skeleton Champion a hero then?
Oh.
No, it's just a
It's
champion
only
of
2.
skeletons.
So you could make that change. I think drop the Seneschal down to you could do a lot.
You've got a million combinations. Yes.
But I mean,
I-
at its core, you're bringing the best things, right? You got a Graveguard. Well, you got a couple of different variations of Graveguard. You got skeletons, and you got the Velmorn crew, which is it's always going to be good.
Yeah. The Graveguard already like punch above their weight class, and the Velmorn Graveguard with doubles and stuff
Even
can
better.
punch way above their weight class.
Right,
This-
and you bring them back, so you don't care if they get attacked.
Yeah.
Mhm. This is the Graveguard, actually. They went the cheaper one. This is the one that doesn't have the as good attack profile. It's got the 4 toughness, I think, the sword and shield one, not the 2-handed one. You only bring in one, so it doesn't really. It's not like the list is built around.
It doesn't have enough points. The two-handers 5 points, so 5 points short of doing that. So once you've decided you're taking like the full Velmorn, it does kind of like you have to kind of make some concessions elsewhere, right? Like that is a decent chunk of points you're committing to. Like the King Velmorn and Sir Jedrin is 310 points you're committing to that package, and then you have to make the points up elsewhere. The Graveguard with Sword and Shield are fine. They're still incredibly efficient units. They just don't have that burst damage potential. But
It just shows the consistency of Soulblight, though, right? You can.
Yeah.
It's hard to build a bad list with them. It's easy to build a very good list with them. But I mean, they're also skill intensive, though, right? You can't just bring any list and be like, "Oh, I'm crushing you with Soulblight." Like you got to be thinking and knowing what you're doing while you're playing with them, because they've got a ton of different tricks, and misplaying those tricks, you're going to be behind, wasting dice on stuff that you don't care about.
Yeah.
Right, you have to target the Velmorn, which is untargetable if they use a double from Jedran.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Necromancer's way in the back, so if you can't pick him out or project to get there, but good luck navigating through the cemetery of things that are in front of you. It is skill intensive in terms of sequencing and knowing your ability to get places and not be stuck and gunked up behind your own.
Yep, positioning for sure.
Right. I think when I first started playing competitive Warcry, everyone's like, you could play Soulblight. And I was like, first I was like, well, that sounds so cool. And then I played against it and got my back blown out by it. I think the res mechanic just felt so bad to play against, but it's really good. Competitively, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then same thing with like Valmorn being like, well, we didn't get fact, so we're just bringing it back in full, guys.
Yeah.
And then we could also move bonus 6 inches with these dudes. And like, there's just so much there for them that lets them be awesome that I'm like jealous. Like they have so many good things to choose from, and it's a good list. And I like seeing Valmorn in here, and I'm happy the dude found success with something that's not as stereotypical as like a regular just 65 point Graveguard spam list. So that's kind of cool.
I'm not surprised that we don't see more Belmore. I just don't know if people didn't get the models for it. They're kind of, I think there's a big crew of people waiting for them to get a solo release.
Right.
Because I know they're great models, for Soulblight stuff. And yeah, I'm always surprised we don't see more of them in tournaments and stuff like that, because they're clearly very good.
Yeah, and the it was brought up earlier. This is a great list for like setting those picket lines, where like if you get ahead early in about territory control or objectives, it is very hard to come back against Soulblight Gravelords in an objective mission, because you will not, if you're looking at one of those typical, like there are 5 objective points on the map, right, and they're spaced out in that pattern, 4 in the corners, 1 in the middle. By the time your guys have finished up securing the 2 in your deployment zone, they are not getting across the board, because be every 2 inches there's a skeleton just spaced out that is going to engage you, and then you're going to either have to kill it or try to disengage around it, and like the turn counter keeps ticking up, and it's so hard to get to the middle of the board is just so congested.
And the ones that you already killed just get brought back on an objective that they need to contest now, right? Like you had to fight to get your objectives, and then all of a sudden the things that you already killed are just applying themselves in a completely different place.
They basically teleported across a long diagonal corner of the board for free.
Yeah.
And on this new objective now that is taking you 3 turns to get to, because you've had to fight through the skeletons in the middle of the board. And now there are 5 skeletons on the objective you're trying to contest that you've been killing. It's tough.
It's flame hurlers. If you're planning on fighting a whole bunch of Soulblight, bring some flame hurlers, bring horns, and just start burning, baby.
Enric Iron Hail and flame hurlers.
Yep. Yeah.
That's it. You could actually bundle them together for this matchup. It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Stuff.
All right. So here's what we got. One sec here. Before you go, Fred. We got 3 more lists.
Warren.
Yeah.
It's 3:20.
Nice to get to meet you, Fred.
Yeah, absolutely. Good times. I would talk about lists all day if I had more time.
Right.
But,
Fred, I'm always on Discord. If you want to learn some TTS, let's hop on, get some games in, man.
All right, sounds good. That sounds good. We'll do that.
We got Peter to do it too, so you guys can have a rematch.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 1-0-1 lifetime. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Have a good day, man.
Getting right back to it. We lost Fred, but we got one more event to cover here. We had the November Tabletop Simulator League, and hey, sure enough, we got the champion for November on playing Cruel Boy Monster Killers. And so, and did you cover this list? You've been on Off Meta Musings a couple times now, I think.
Oh, my second time, yeah.
So, and I think I know you covered a lot of the abilities in that video, but anything to kind of double back on for Monster Killers with this list?
Yeah, so I mean that was more of a, if you want to check out more of my thoughts on that, and you check out Off Meta's Cruel Boys Monster Killers, we like break down all the profiles and everything individually and kind of discuss that. This list was in like a list building confinement of what we were in a league, so I didn't have access to certain factions. Like I couldn't take a mega boss, I could take one brute boss if I wanted to, but I chose to take the Brugit and the Clawback and keep that as a deployment with something. Basically everything here is a 6-inch aura of like I could possibly net you. So when I did face against the Demetrios and his list, he would go to move things and then I'd roll lucky I'd roll the 1/3 chance, net it. All of a sudden, his damage has just stopped, and I can harass and pepper you with pretty much gambling abilities that involve dice value. It's really fun. It's really interesting. When they win, it feels like this excellent surgical execution of decisions. When they roll bad and they don't gamble well, then they just get blown up. The monkey, as you see here, that profile, I have 4 of them. I have 0 built because they're horrible looking models. Playing them,
You're wrong. I'm going to disagree, but go on.
Oh, it's cool. Some of us have feelings, and you just heard all of mine.
But no,
It's okay. Some of us have eyes, and I just
Salty.
use mine.
I know Salty likes the monkeys, and you're much more of an advocate of the Clutcher Grot.
Right. Well, and we're gonna get to the Clutcher Grot and his holiness of absolutely effing everything over. Salty did kind of convince me to try one Hala. He's like, try it out. You haven't tried them yet. I'm like, you know what? That's right. I can't knock it till you try it, right, Warren? And pretty much it just hunted down ranged pieces. I put it on top of the Arbalester. I put it on top of things that were being disruptive, and it can never get away from it because it's, he's moving 3, he disengages. I just follow right back up. It's really an awesome piece in terms of like throwing 5 dice at something if I'm not going to get countered, which I could, but I have 18 wounds to kind of protect that speed at that pricing. 2/4 profile, pretty awesome. It's just, it never felt bad. And it was just quick enough to harass or be in there. It was pretty sick. And same thing with like the neck slices with the harpoon. Rip it out. It's devastating. Rip it out absolutely murders things. The bone hacka saw him up, bypasses the defenses of Stormcast and big tough guys. However, I didn't even talk about the Beast Knop. It's just a good bespoke leader. It's a better Askergen exemplar. The Clutchergrots, otherwise known as MVPs, right? 60 points. 6 wounds, 4 toughness. Why is it good, you may ask? Well, I put it there in its tiny little base. It sits there. It says you walk in, you're going to take 2 damage minimum. Who cares? It's just 2 damage. Okay, walk again. You might get netted, or if you close the distance, you might just take 4 damage. If you did engage me, you took 4 damage. I counter. Maybe you take another 3 damage. All of a sudden, your Stormcast down to 13 from attacking a Clutchergrot. They've been nothing but excellent, and people just always target them right off the bat. Like, let's just get it out of the way. It's surprisingly pretty awesome for a little model. And if they're in cover, it's 5 toughness on them. So like, you don't want to waste your time trying to kill 5 toughness, 60-point model. They're really excellent. And they just act as reaction batteries. And yeah, 2 damage, whatever, give or take. It's the mental threat of if I walk in, what if I get netted? Whole turn's done. I got these movement 3 guys. They can't finish within 1 move of them. Get netted. I had a game in real life last week against our boy Kyle, which you'll see later on this list. He climbed deadly terrain because it's the only way he could get to me. Takes D6 damage, takes 6, right? He gets right up 2 inches over next to me to make an attack. I make my reaction. He takes 4 damage. That's 10 damage just moving towards me on 12 wound model. Like, it's absolutely a tax. And if you're making all that effort to kill it and you don't kill it, it's bad. All I'm gonna say is stonks are up for this guy.
If you're gonna be playing into a range warband, probably consider not bringing a ton of them because they're just gonna get sniped pretty much more easy. They're gonna just get crit out. But like,
right, and that's where they suck. But you know what, dude? I take 2 maybe max on my list. I would never spam them as like reaction batteries. Definitely list dependent. You can't get much more than 8 models in this. And I think the only other variants I play, instead of a clawback Brugit, I do like brute boss with an Ardboy boss. And instead of the Hala, I drop it down for a Flaga. And it's just a good list. It's a lot of fun. It's a box. This is a box right here with 2 allies. And it's easy. It's a good time. It's very skill intensive, very reaction intensive, but it's a good time.
The whole warband kind of feels like Warcry playing craps, right? It's so much like, it's so many fun, risky plays that you're taking. You can't, nothing's necessarily reliable, but I think it's if you enjoy rolling dice and seeing what happens, I think it's a super fun list to play. And like when they spike, I think they can beat any list when they're spiking. If you're sawing something up and you get that really good straight, like guess what? Whatever you're fighting is in deep trouble now from a 120 point model that just chucked a triple at you. So yeah, I think they were very clear play style of what they want to be doing, and that play style is fun.
Yeah, it's just gambling. It's a gambler's paradise.
Exactly.
if anybody wants to play it for fun, like it could be frustrating. You could absolutely do nothing, miss all your abilities, and you're like, what did I do? But with good positioning and a little bit of luck, like I saw it up in Annie Prime for 12, like destroying it in one go. Like it's
Whoever
200 points gone.
whoever brings Krillboy Musculus to Atlantic City Open gets a bonus prize for bringing the gambling list to the gambler's paradise out there.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, this from big picture, right? So we wound up having to not talk about all the new previews from the month of November due to time, but Salty did say something on Discord, like out of like 9 new factions that got introduced in the last 2 or 3 months, like 6 or 7 of them, I can't remember his count. I think
he said 6.
He said 6 out of those 9 were well designed. I think it's maybe closer to 7, but the point is, and this kind of goes along with the whole year in review talk we'll have to finish this out, is that lately, even though we actually have gotten just a lot of content lately, and it's actually been all fairly well designed,
Yeah.
cohesive, new design space content. So I mean,
and like new ideas too, not just
Yeah.
rehashing like stuff that we've seen a ton of times.
Well, there's a lot of risk in the design space, but it's all been paying off in spades. It's been
Yep.
really cool.
yeah, because
Sure.
we talked about a couple different monster killers lists, Cities of Sigmar. We didn't even cover Vulcan Flame Seekers on this one, but yeah.
It's just it's an exciting time coming from Dead Game to this. What a couple of months we've had. Back to life, baby. We got fully rezzed. We're a Velmorn Graveguard back to 10 wounds.
Yep. So here we got the reappearance of the Retributor Prime, is that 180 point ally in the second place from Malachiah. Annihilator Prime with Grand Hammer, and then filling the rest out with Wildercore Hunters, Grizzly Trailhound, Arbalester, of course, and 5 Trailhounds.
I think Rob and
really
I both
cool?
played against this list in the league. I played
Yeah,
him
we did.
first on, was it a objective mission? That was tough, having a ton of dogs just whipping around. And I was playing with some pretty fragile. I was playing with Ephilim, Trueblood, and a Myrmidon. So I had a lot of really fragile pieces. To be able to contest objectives, I needed to keep those pieces alive. So I really had to go in hard to get after the Arbalester to start the game. And then it was a real tough matchup, especially against an opponent as skilled as Sel is. So yeah, he plays bodies really well, and he deployed both of the big heavies with the Arbalester, and he would oftentimes castle them up with it. And then the nice thing with that Retributor Prime is he can get free moves if anything's taken. So if you move in, you use an action to move, you attack the Arbalester, you don't kill it, it gets a free disengage. Then when he activates whenever he wants, because the nearest threat is already activated for that round, but the Retributor has a double that says, well, if you've got a friend that's been hurt nearby, just take a free move. So then all of a sudden that boy just pops in on a double, starts chucking 8 dice, strength 5, 3/5 damage on you, a lot of stuff, and then you're engaged, so you can't chase the Arbalester again. It's a really cool design. It was really, really cool.
Furious Avengers works on any friendly model, not just friendly Stormcast Warrior.
Yeah, any friendly model.
Okay, nice.
Yep. Yeah, it was a really, really clever design from him. Way to recognize it. And yeah, I hate that he found it. Absolutely hated it, but it was cool to watch.
Yeah, I played him in, I think, the finals, I think was what it was.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I had a treasure mission against him. So he had 5 beasts, and it just kind of, once I know, I just kind of tickle out his stuff. Like I just remove the ones that can hold it. It wasn't a problem. He moved forward, and we were playing the gambling game with Monster Killers, and my gambles paid off. And it was brutal. It felt bad, but the Arbalester got tied up by the monkey. The 5 dogs are just like, they just fly off the board and tangle and congest the middle. But I had enough ways to just bonus remove stuff, so it wasn't a big deal.
Plus the threat of a random kill command.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Not kill command, whichever one does the triple damage.
Kill command's from WoW, but it's the same thing, and I appreciate that reference. It is 100% kill. It's awesome.
It's fantastic too, because there's no range on it, I think, right? It just has to be
no range.
Number of dogs within, visible, and then it's dogs within range of an item. So like, there's so much flexibility with it.
Yeah, and he's such a dude. Dude's such a nice guy, such a pleasant dude. He's been in all our leagues, such a skilled player. and it was a really cool, unique list for the list building
It was one of the
limitations that we were in.
one of the first World of Core lists that had happened, right? Like, because I hadn't seen a ton. I think he'd made this before ITAN had kind of really concocted his stuff before his video came out. So it was, and I haven't seen anybody build like this with him since, really, either. You know, it's either you're focusing on the dogs, or obviously the Arbalesters are in there, but you know, with the Calthias, all that kind of stuff, nobody's really gone, hey, let me castle up around my Arbalester and just continue to plank away all the way across the board. So yeah, really neat idea and well executed.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of similarities between Retributor Prime, the Annihilator Prime with Grand Hammer as well. If you bless the Retributor Prime, it's like a point of range off from having the same profile.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And they're just, I mean, 2-inch range again, when you're just trying to protect that Arbalester, and people are going to be throwing things at it, right? It's a risk that you have to take when you play against it a lot of the time. Again, especially in my game, I had a bunch of stuff that had like a 6 wound, two 10 wound models, a 12 wound model. Like, if I just let it sit and shoot there, I was just going to lose half my list and not be able to contest objectives. So I had to make a play to do something about it. And then you've got a thing with a free move, and you got a thing with a 2-inch range that are both going to be absolutely melting whatever you're throwing at them most of the time. So yeah, it can get pretty crazy.
He won initiative turn 1 and just set up his Arbalester and then just shot my Clutchagrat right off the rip. Like, it's like, okay, it was like crit hit, it's dead. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, Team Rocket.
And then then he, that thing went launched, and then he targeted something else and only hit once, put 4 on it. And then we kind of just went from there. It's a very scary list in what it offers. I think we were talking about it. I think you wanted to try the Trailhounds with the kill, but almost decided that the crossbows are a little bit slightly better route than the Trailhounds. But getting 5 Trailhounds for 300 is pretty prima. It's a pretty good deal.
For objective missions.
For objective missions, it's great.
And that's not going too deep into like the Trailhound meme.
Right.
Like, not going like, let's play 10.
Well, Toast right now, to his credit, is playing in the TTS league at the moment. He's playing a list with 9 of them. He's playing. We did a Christmas theme for the list, so
right?
Yep, got each reindeer.
It's a gamble.
And then rounding out the top 3, we had Kyle Knapp, also known as Great White Nope. He's the resident expert on Royal Beast Flayers.
Yes.
And this is a list that I think that he was advocating after Nova. Like, if he could run it back, this is what he would play. So he's got just 1 Flaymaster down from 2, Abhorred Archregent, 2 Beast Flayer Barons up from 1, and then 7 Ghoul Trackers for a total of still a swarm list of 11 models, 995 points.
This is the equivalent of just like hitting a wasp nest, and then all of a sudden you've got 12 models zooming all over the board.
It's pretty interesting because he doesn't have the recursion that Soulblight has, so you have to be a little bit more careful. But they have Sound the Hunt and Pack Tactics, right? But he uses the Archregent as like an anvil piece to just kind of heal and Baffling Parlay and execute little things. But if you watch him when he plays this list, he does a ton of waiting, and then he measures where you're moving. So he out-activates you. Then all of a sudden, he flies with the 2 Barons, moves everything up, and then moves everything again. So you're getting these ghouls just ripping up the board on like 10, sometimes 11 inches off, like them only having 1 activation left to move. Yeah. So like there's no safe spot, and he just clogs it up. And then you'll kill 1. Maybe if you don't kill it, or if you kill 2, you're lucky. You kill 1, all of a sudden there's just 6 guys next to you, and then he's like, okay, Pack Tactics you for 12. And then you're just like, whoa, what's going on here? It's really cool. Watching him play is really good. It was the first time I learned a list to shut down Hrothgorn list was this list. And it was really awesome watching him work with it. Like, he really does a nice job with RBF, trying to put him on the map. I think he does a good job.
Rob was was it Harold, who he's got the smile on his face, but he's dead inside as he watched Hrothgorn just get chunked down?
I know. It wasn't even chunked down. I didn't have any shots.
Oh,
he engaged everything.
Yes.
That's excellent. That's so good. So it's impressive. It's a cool list. A lot of skill to play. I want to see him take it.
Flexibility is insane. Just your ability to get around the board and be where you need to be. Just wild.
All right. So here we're going to close out some final discussion, just final takeaways from 2023. Salty called this the year of the dwarf. Check out his awesome video. And all the folks that we kind of shouted out, I'll have links to their videos as well. But here I'll kind of talk about my kind of initial takes for, like, what was this year? I kind of called this the year of the orc jokingly on the last episode, because we kind of seen the rise of we got Monster Killers, we had Cruel Boys and stuff like that. I think Move 3 fighters are obviously a little bit more powerful and have shaped the year a little bit more. But I think you make an argument for this being Year of the Orc as well.
Okay. We blend them together. Year of the Dorks.
Yeah.
Dork Year 2023.
Oh man,
I was there.
Big fat dork year. Let's go.
Yeah. So we had a decent amount of new content in 2023. We had quarterly boxes. We had just a whole lot of new releases here in the last part of the year. Unexpected new warbands. Like, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, right? But no one was expecting us to get like 3 new factions out of Cities of Sigmar with the re-release of the AOS range, and or Knave's Black Talons, for example. So yeah, if you're we didn't have enough time to cover all the new stuff, right? But the other content creators have been very, very busy making videos on everything new that's coming out too. So check them all out. And then finally, and I last but absolutely not least, no one's kind of talked about this. We've talked about it here throughout this episode, blessings. The blessing rules came out in White Dwarf this year, and I think that is actually arguably the most impactful change made to the game. I think
I'd agree.
People love them.
Yeah.
People love them. It adds so much more flexibility, giving new life to models that maybe didn't have a great profile. Yeah, it makes the strong thing stronger, but I think they're universal. I think the blessing rule is generally universally beloved across the community. We ran Flexi Blessings. We've seen Flexi Blessings in a few other lists or in a few other tournaments previous as well. You get your thoughts on blessings as a whole, and also like Flexi Blessings versus putting them actually just dedicating them in your list.
The One Bless Wonders.
There's some lists that just will always have that one bless for that one particular unit. Like if you're playing Pock or Arbalester, you're always going to have the 15 points or +1 strength. That's rarely going to make it like anywhere else. But I love that there's flexible blessings for like, hey, I know when I'm going against a bunch of chaff, I already have higher toughness. I need to protect myself against getting crit fished. Let's add 4 extra wounds. It adds such a beautiful depth to the game during list building, which was already pretty deep for us. And it allows smart players to kind of thrive, and it allows players to kind of freely express and play and experiment. And it's good for new and veteran players alike. I think it's been a year of just an insane amount of surprises, like getting blessings into, I was like, oh great, one fact rampage change, which was excellent for the game.
That's not all they did. They also made sure that you bared in mind that the ruler from Crypt of Blood was longer than it should. It was, that
3
that
millimeters longer.
3
millimeters longer. It changed the game, baby.
Don't we all wish we had?
Right. It makes a difference, and it's just been excellent, dude. We ended up getting like 9 new things, and we're still like, where's our points adjustments? Like, no one's ever.
Yes.
I'm never happy, but seriously,
we got Nether Maze warbands. We didn't cover them, but Nether. I mean, whether it was kind of a anticlimactic, but
Hexbanes.
Hexbanes are super good. That's a whole episode by itself. That's a whole episode by itself.
New piece of soup.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we got Hexbane. We got Nether Maze, where we'd already sort of written it off like, well, nope, there's just gonna be a gap in the Underworld's history that we're never gonna see, and we got it. Like,
we did. They came through.
They listen. So write those FAQs. If you want something in the game, reach out to them. They listen.
We'll get it eventually. 2025.
Oh baby, here they come. To reiterate, Rob, too, like those, I think that, and from what you said, Warren, I think blessings are the essentially completely change the game in a way that even like a points update kind of can't, because it gives you a whole bunch of flexible points updates. It's not just one set of numbers that now we're trying to build around. It's a completely flexible, right, set of numbers where you can tweak anything up or down. Well, you can tweak anything up and make it bigger to really build the list the way that you want to, and it really refreshed so much of the game for me, because now you can, the good factions are still good. Some of the not so good factions I think are better and can not necessarily reach the upper echelons of what the game's doing, but if you roll well in any tournament, you can win. So now you've got some more options for factions that can actually show up and have a chance to win a tournament. But it's so much more fun. They're just so much more fun to build with than just an arbitrary, list of numbers that you had to kind of stick to before. So yeah, I would agree. I think as amazing as 2023 was for all of the brand new things that we got, I think that was the sneaky most impactful thing that came out of all of it.
For sure. Oh,
So,
and TTS League. That was another
Oh
big thing that
baby.
came.
Oh baby.
Oh baby.
coming up in 2024. This is just some of the events coming up in 2024 that we'll be covering on this channel. We got the majors, obviously. There could be some more potential tournaments in New Jersey, potentially Wisconsin or Minnesota as well. So keep in touch with this channel. Again, this channel is becoming primarily a list review channel due to the amount of time we spend on it, which is fine, which is great. So stay in touch for that. Big stuff happened in 2024.
Yeah, it's exciting. A lot of tourneys coming.
Yeah, that list is filled, and there's like a potential of 3 more in Jersey, like you mentioned. Like ACO still going to get announced. We still have like more local stuff popping up, dude. That's awesome, dude. We're thriving.
I'm gonna try to push people to try to get down to, oh my goodness, Gen Con. I know it didn't end up happening last year, but I think there's enough people nearby to Gen Con to try to get a tourney going for that one too. So
What state is that?
Indiana.
Oh, that's right. I think we talked about
Indianapolis.
that.
It's early August.
Mhm.
Before we make plans for Gen Con, I'll just say this. I'm not giving any spoilers, but you want to keep your calendar open in the month of August for Dayton. Trust me on this one.
Yep. No. I remember hearing something special going down in the OHIO state. So, and that kills me to say as a Michigan alumni. So, but no, for sure.
Where's that?
No, yeah, Warren, for sure. That's on my list of things to keep available. So yeah, that's a good point. I forgot that it kind of lines up with that might be a busy month trying to get to Nova and are you looking at doing earlier in the month? I know you kind of talked about it being
I don't want to clash with Gen Con.
Yeah.
I do have to guarantee that.
Okay. Is Jolly gonna do Gen Con still?
I don't know. After it fizzled last year, I couldn't tell you. This brings us to a close for this episode of Dayton Warcry Club. We might go back if I can get you guys again, potentially to talk about the November stuff. But if not, you can catch us next month as we continue to do our tournament list coverage. In the meantime, you can always chat with us on the official Warcry Discord, link in the description below. You can find me there as War Machine, signing off, and we also have...
You can find me there as Girth Demon.
You can find me there as Armor Enthusiast 7.
And then also we got Fred Shred. Thanks for listening. I know.
Come on, Fred. It's our first meeting, Fred.
You guys...
Come on, Fred.
You guys are the one. Hold on. For the record, you guys are the ones that spent 20 minutes talking about one KO list. Like,
Yeah, well, it's a great list.
Fight for Profit is good. In other news, water is wet.
Right.
I know how to spell Girth Demon. I don't know how to spell Arm War.
Everybody's learning. I'm teaching people now.
That fancy French gentleman right next to the girthy guy.
Try not to butcher people's names.
No,
I think I did well. I didn't butcher Atan.
No,
not since the first time.
Yeah, learned my lesson. I double checked myself before saying his name.
For sure.
All right. I make it on the fly, and
no, it's perfect.
Sometimes I even include your thing on there, or sometimes I just like cut it out and I just like, oh, it was never incorrect in the first place.
Perfect.
The magic of being the editor. I'm never wrong.
That's true. That's a big fact. Did you know Santa Claus translates in Irish to Daddy December?
Yes, I did see that.